What is up, YouTube? We're back with another YouTube video, and we're here with the Extraction Legend Lost Sector video. As you can see, we're in the throne world. So if you don't know how to get here, just look at your destinations tab, and then go to the left lower part of the map, as you can see, and then you want to go to Court of Savathun, obviously known as the throne world, and then just spawn in Quagmire, the only spawn location. And then once you're here, take out your Sparrow, and we're gonna go straight over here. You can see it's not too far, so we don't have to worry about distance at all. Just go straight forward, then turn to the left here for a bit, and then you can see right here, you're gonna see the little lost sector icon. You can reveal it with a rift, but if you don't have that upgrade or something like that, you can just make this jump, as you can see, like normal. Now we made it here, and we're gonna go through the modifiers. So for the modifiers today, we have Shielded Fills, so face combatants with Arc and Void Shields, Lock Loadout, Extra Shields. We got Equipment Locked, Limited Revives, Overload, and Unstoppable Champions. So we have like the two most annoying ones back to back. Then we have Arc Threat, which is a 25% increase to incoming Arc damage. And then we have Raider's Shield. Scorn Raiders now have Void Shields. Overcharged weapons. Weapon overcharges from the seasonal artifact are active in this activity. Kinetic weapons do increased damage when your subclass element matches an active surge. Then we have Arc Surge, which is a 25% bonus to outgoing arc damage. And then we have Strand Surge, which is a 25% bonus to outgoing strand damage. Then we have Overcharged Glaive, which is a 25% bonus to glaive damage. Then, if completed solo, Exotic Chest Armor, which is rare, so if you're a Titan, today you can get one of the new exotics, but I do not recommend trying to farm this lost sector. And enhancement cores, which are uncommon, and recommended power is 1830, but 1815 and above you should be fine. So that's the modifiers. We're going to go cut to the build, and then we'll get into the gameplay. So here is the build that I ran for this. Now, it's your typical Falcons, Void build. There's not anything too crazy about it. The only thing I changed up really was the weapons, but let's just get into it. So for subclass, Shadow Shot, Mobius Quiver, Void Hunter, obviously. Then for abilities, Marksman Dodge, Triple Jump, Snare Bomb, and Vortex Grenade. Then on aspects, we got Vanishing Step with Stylus Executioner. Fragments, Echo of Expulsion, Echo of Remnants, Echo of Undermining, and Echo of Reprisal. Then in terms of weapons, this is the only big change, is we're running a hand cannon for unstoppable hand cannon, and we're using a strand hand cannon because strand and arc do have a damage buff, so we're taking advantage of that by using a strand hand cannon. Now, does it have to be this one? No, not really, but I think this is like really one of the only strand hand cannons there are in the game. I could be totally wrong. I'm not 100% sure, but again, just if you have a strand hand cannon, throw it on. And then I'm running this with Le Monarch, which is mainly just for overload champions, and since we're using Void subclass with Falcons, you want a Void weapon, that way you're taking advantage of the volatile rounds and going in and out of being invisible and stuff like that. So Le Monarch does a great job at that, and if you've seen my other videos with the Le Monarch build, it's pretty easy to use, and it just makes this a whole lot easier because you're doing, good damage just with the gun itself. Then you do volatile rounds, then you get some AoE effect with the poison, and if void shields are next to each other, you're getting a little void explosion. That with picking up the, what are they called, the void brooches and stuff, it's just a good pair, good synergy all around. So that's why I'm running Le Monarch, and you don't have to worry about getting an artifact mod because it does have overload rounds intrinsically, meaning that you never have to worry about putting a champion mod on or anything, because this will always just stun overload champions. Then in my heavy, no surprise, it's been Circular Logic since last season, and it's going to stay Circular Logic just because it's kind of my go-to. I just like holding a lot of heavy ammo, and with the strand damage buff, you can use this, and I highly recommend getting a Circular Logic with Hatchling. So that's just kind of my go-to at this point. Now, one thing I want to mention is if you're going to run this, or let's say you just want another type of build or whatever, just in terms of weapons, let's say you don't have this strand hand cannon, right? And that's fine. You can use any kinetic hand cannon you want. Let's say if you're an older player, you might have one of these lying around, right? Judgment or Survivor's Epitaph, Seven Seraph Office Revolver, something like that, right? Spare Rations is dropping from this season as well. So you can see any kinetic hand cannon you can throw on, and you'll also get a damage boost because let's say you're using Strand or Arc subclass, your kinetic weapons will do increased damage. Now if you run Void like I have, you're not going to get increased damage for kinetics, but if you don't have a Strand hand cannon, you can just get away with using any regular hand cannon. Then if let's say you don't want to use the Monarch, another option for overloads we do have is Overload Scout and Overload Trace Rifle. My thing for getting a Void Trace Rifle is there's only two, at least, that I own, and that's Hollow Denial, which is from a past season of the Haunted. So if you're a new player, you're not necessarily gonna be able to obtain this relatively quickly unless Banshee or some vendor is selling it. Then that's one way to get it. But the other option is Ruinous Effigy. Now, I believe you can get this from the exotic archive in the tower. Not 100% sure, but I also don't know if it's just like a regular exotic drop that can happen. Not sure about that, but these are the only two Void Trace Rifles, so if you wanted to try something like that, you can. However, if you're a new player, the odds are you don't have Hollow Denial, and you might not have Ruinous Effigy as well, so you might have to use a Scout if that's what you have to do. But that's why I recommend the Monarch, just because this has been in the game for quite a minute. I'm pretty sure you can obtain it relatively easily, so that's kind of why I put this build together. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to run a Strand hand cannon. Obviously, it's nice to use it because of the buff, but if not, just put a kinetic and just figure out whatever you're gonna do when it comes to your champion mods and everything. Now when it comes to armor, it's pretty much the same thing as always. Ashes to Assets with Strand Siphon and Void Siphon. Ashes to Assets is going to gain bonus super energy on grenade kills, and Strand Siphon and Void Siphon is going to allow rapid Strand weapon final blows and Void weapon final blows to create orbs of power. As you can see here, Strand weapon, Void. So pretty easy. Then in terms of my arms, Firepower, your grenade final blows create orbs of power, regenerating a lot of orbs. Grenade Kickstart, when your grenade energy is fully expended, you gain grenade energy. So again, we're throwing our nades to get kills. We're constantly going to be wanting to throw them, so when you expend grenade energy, you get grenade energy. Then Void Loader, which increases reload speed of Void weapons. This is mainly just for the bow because obviously since it's a bow, you only have one shot, then you have to put another arrow in. So that just helps make it go a little faster. Then for my chest piece, we're running the exotic Gerfalcons. And again, this is a really good exotic if you're a hunter maid. I highly recommend you go out and get, a good roll. And you can see, after being invisible, your void weapons gain volatile rounds. And that's mainly what we want here. You can dodge to go invisible. You can get a nade kill to go invisible. So you have all these options, and coming out of invisibility will give you those volatile rounds, and that does work on the bow and everything. So you're going to be doing increased damage. You're going to have like a little AoE effect, so if you have like 4 red health bar enemies next to each other, on top of doing the poison arrow damage, you're going to have like a little void explosion every time. Then we have Charged Up, which increases the maximum number of stacks of an armor charge you can carry by 1. So that's obviously one thing we want. If we're picking up orbs, we want to have armor charges, that way we can benefit from them as much as possible. Then we have 2 arc damage resistant mods, and this is mainly because the boss at the end of the Lost Sector does arc damage, and it's one of those, they're a Lucent Hive that they have arc supers, so they pretty much throw arc nades. They have an arc super which they have no problem spamming, so that's a lot of arc damage you don't want to be taking. There's also Knights in the Lost Sector that deal arc damage. There's also, what are they called? The little moths or whatever that they can explode and, do arc damage. So there's just a lot of arc that's here. There's also Void and Solar, so just be aware of that. But that's why I have 2 arc damage resistant mods on. Then for my legs, Better Already. And this is your health begins to regenerate immediately after picking up an Orb of Power. And I just recommend this because we're going to be in different situations in the Lost Sector. There's one where you have to capture 3 plates. And let's say if I kill an enemy, most of the time I'm going to do it while I'm invisible. But let's say for whatever reason, I'm not invisible and I'm taking a lot of damage. If I kill an enemy, I can go pick up an orb and it'll start healing me. Then Strand Weapon Surge and Void Weapon Surge. So this is why we have those Armor Charge mods, as well as the Orbs of Power that we're generating. So when we pick up orbs, we're going to get the Armor Charge, and while we have an Armor Charge, we're going to have a Weapon Surge that increases by a small bonus damage to, Strand and Void Weapons. Obviously that's important because if we get a kill with our hand cannon or with our machine gun, we're getting kills with Strand Weapons, and we're going to take advantage of that damage buff. But also with our Void Weapon, Le Monarch, which is also going to be a main weapon that we're going to be using. So we're getting buffs to our damage every time we pick up an Armor Charge, which is great. Then when it comes to the Cloak, 2-time dilation mods, your Decaying Armor Charge has a longer duration, so we're really just trying to get as much time out of the Armor Charges as possible. And then Bomber, which reduces grenade cooldown when using your class ability. So again, if we're dodging, going invisible, we're using our nade, and we want to get grenade energy back, we can just use our class ability, as well as the artifact mod that we have, which is Unto the Breach, and then Protective Breach, and then Supernova. These all give you benefits of getting Void Breaches, and if you don't know, a Void Breach will help you get your class ability back faster. So if you're a hunter like me, you'll get your dodge back fast. If you're a Titan, you'll get your rally barricade or whatever barricade you're using, and then warlocks get their rifts back faster. Now, in terms of artifacts mods that are being used here, you can see, like I said, here we have Unto the Breach, Protective Breach, and then Supernova, but we also have authorized mods Void, so that will help discount your Void mods and help make it to where you can easily, have more Void mods to your disposal. Now, when it comes to counter charge, this just helps you gain an armor charge when you stun a champion. And if you'll notice, when I play the game, pretty much I'm always spamming weapons at the boss. I'm not trying to melt them instantly. That way I can build up armor charges instead of, I get 1 armor charge only and then just kill the boss straight away. I'll get like 3 armor charges for stunning them 3 times, and then I'll just do a finisher or whatever. So that's kind of like the thought process behind that. But again, it's not something you have to worry too much about. Don't change up your whole playstyle if that's just not how you play the game. But just to show you here, things we're taking advantage of is our unstoppable hand cannon. That way we can stun unstoppable champions. And you can see here, authorized mod Void. That's definitely another one I recommend. Unto the Breach, Protective Breach, Supernova, and Counter Charge. Those are the main ones I recommend you go for if you're going to just follow the same build. But that's going to do it for the build here. Now we're going to cut straight over to the gameplay. So we just started the Lost Sector here, and you can see this room is actually one of the more easier starting rooms in my opinion. You can see here we're just dealing with a lot of red health bar enemies. We are going to end up dealing with an overload champion at some point. Just be prepared for that. You can see I'm just trying to break those void shield to get like some chain damage going with Le Monarch, as you can see there. Yeah, another void shield right here. Deal with these enemies. I'm pretty sure the overload spawned because of that solar little, I don't know, I want to call it a turret, but it's not really a turret. There's the overload. Now I'd rather just deal with every red health bar and leave the overload last, because those regular enemies are going to just spam nades and be annoying while you're trying to stun the champion. So you can see either focus on solely the champion first and then the enemies, or focus on all the enemies and then the champion. That way to make your life a little easier. You're going to see I'm just going to keep spamming him. I could use my heavy if I wanted to make this a little faster, but I'm just gonna save it. But boom, we did that. Make sure we pick up any orbs that we have. Now let's make our way over here. Now this is probably the most annoying part in my opinion for this lost sector, and this is where it really starts to lose points for me, is when it comes to this little 3-plate mechanic. Now what you're going to notice is in the middle there's 3 symbols here, and those hive symbols, to get rid of them you have to capture 3 plates. One is right next to me right here on the right, where you can see this knight is kind of standing next to it. I'll show you right now. You can see the plate right here. What you're going to want to do is pretty much capture it by standing on it. Now you can see I was trying to demonstrate that you can stand on it to capture it, but also one of the struggles of trying to capture the plate is without invisibility, you're just going to be open to taking damage and stuff like that. Now, that's why I'm running a void build, because to be honest, I don't really like this lost sector, so to even run it, I rather run a void build that I'm comfortable playing with and that I enjoy using, instead of putting on a strand build or an arc build that I don't really want to use and then end up, you know, taking damage and stuff when I can just go invisible and, you know, avoid it. So you can see I'm going to switch over here to the right side now, and there is an unstoppable champion in the middle. I do want to point that out. I'm just kind of avoiding it for now. You can see this knight is here. Yeah, I'm going to go invisible, and I'm going to pick up these little void breaches to get class ability, but also the whole supernova little overshield thing you're seeing. You can see I'm starting to take damage, so I just gotta go invisible again. That way I can capture this plate without taking any damage. Go back to being invisible. And you can see in some instances you can do it really fast, and in some of them it feels like it's taking forever, but now that we've done that, you're kind of in a safe spot here. Let's take out a majority of these ads, and then we'll work our way towards the middle plate, which is going to have that unstoppable champion. As you can see, these enemies really just don't want to take any damage. They're just going to run away. I'm just going to take out my machine gun here and do some damage. You can see that that's just insane damage. Gonna have to reload. This annoying thing here, you can just see why I don't like this part of the lost sector. I'm still dealing with these ads. See, the unstoppable ogre's about to push. I just back up. There we go. This is probably a good time to also mention how I wanted to upload this video around reset, but unfortunately Destiny 2 servers had other plans for us all today, because if you're not familiar, I think it started with error codes that have been happening the last few days, and then Bungie just decided, hey, we see that it's been causing issues, let's do emergency maintenance, and that's pretty much what they did. If this guy would stop spamming these, I would appreciate that so much. But as you know, obviously emergency maintenance means the game is pretty much down. I'm using my machine gun to take this guy out. He's just really annoying. I'm gonna go invisible. Even then, I was about to die right there. Let my nade get a kill. And I'm just gonna stay on this plate. Then I just keep using Pure Falcons to go in and out of being invisible. See that. The only downside with doing what I just did is they'll know your last location, and then they'll spam nades and stuff wherever you were last seen. Jesus. So yeah, I should note, once you complete the last plate, you are going to have more ads spawning right here. Bro, I hate these so much. So let's just deal with this. I could tether, but to be honest, once you complete this area, you're straight into the boss room, so you don't really have too much to worry about after this. But if you wanted to, I could have tethered earlier to make that a lot easier. I just realized that. Yeah, let's just keep going, because this is like a resident sleeper Lost Sector. Not a big fan of it. Just pick that up. Now we are gonna have 2 unstoppable champions here, I think. Unless that's only on Master, I'm not sure. Okay, yeah, there's 2 unstoppable champions. So I'm just gonna tell them, I'm gonna be honest, the boss's health isn't that crazy, so I'm not too worried about it. I could probably just use the Monarch if I really wanted to beat the boss. Do some damage with Strand here. Go invisible. Stun this guy, and I'm just gonna use the Monarch. Or you know what? I'll use Heavy, because I've been sitting on it this whole time. Now you can see they're doing arc damage, and that arc damage is increased. So you don't want to take too much of that from the boss. You can see. I'll just give it a minute. Do that. Now use this invisibility to get inside here. Should throw a nade real quick. That should make me invisible. There we go. I'll use a volatile round right here on the boss. Just like that. And she just threw an arc nade. Okay. Let me just run back over here. That actually hurt. Alright. It's just the arc damage that makes this a little tough. And the fact that she's hovering in the air and moving around like that. You can see at one point you're also going to have ads spawning. Go. Now there are gonna be cursed thralls, so watch out. Those are the exploding little enemies there. You can see. I think we're done here now. Pretty much like a 10-minute run. And you can see at some points I was playing very passive and stuff like that. I wasn't trying to get too involved. So there were instances where I could have used tether in the second room and done it a lot faster. But do with this as you will. Do I recommend trying to farm this? Not really. Not a big fan of this Lost Sector. Let me know down in the comments if you ran a Strand builder, an Arc builder, whatever. Let me know down in the comments anything that you recommend, to be honest, for other people, because while I use Void kind of just to, you know, stay alive and stuff, who knows, a Strand build with increased damage from the Surge and everything is obviously pretty useful. You can use decoys to help make it easier, but I just ran Void because I like Void. I like the Monarch, so boom, that was the build and everything. So that's gonna do it for the video. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.